Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I've got goodies from Sequre here. So they have recently sent me a couple of their soldering irons. I've just wrapped up recording the video for the S99 soldering iron here, so check that one out. It's probably getting released at the same time as this one. What I've got here is the HT140 hot tweezers. Now, for a long time, I've had people asking me why don't I use hot tweezers for removing dead capacitors and stuff like that. And the short answer is that finding a good pair of hot tweezers that don't cost the earth is actually quite tricky. There's plenty of examples out there. You know, Hako makes some, JBC makes some. I'm sure there are probably some other Chinese brands as well that have also made some. But ultimately, a soldering station for hot tweezers is often expensive enough that it's very difficult to justify when hot air will often do the same job, or you could just use two soldering irons. And like, if you're working on something like mobile phones and things like that, where you're working on really small items, hot tweezers are really good. But I work on laptops where, you know, you're not working in that much of a cramped space. So I've always said to people, I don't really care about hot tweezers. I just use hot air or a soldering iron. However, when Sequre came out with the HT140 hot tweezers, I saw some reviews of these doing the rounds. I was like, that looks interesting, because this is basically like the classic electronic soldering irons that we see, like the TS100, like the Pine 64 Pinesil, just a Type-C powered soldering iron, except they're hot tweezers. And I'm like, okay, now you're talking, because I don't need a big old soldering station, and the cost on these is pretty competitive as well. And what I like the most about Sequre's new stuff that they've been coming out with is they're using the JBC style cartridges. So on a soldering iron like this one, the Pinesil and the TS100, they use, I don't know the name of this cartridge, I just call it just the Miniware cartridge, but there's not a lot of high quality decent tips available for these. But if you have something that takes the JBC cartridges, you can put JBC tips in it, which means you can take a low cost budget soldering iron and turn it into a super weapon just by sticking a $50 JBC tip in it. So that makes it really, really interesting as a starter hobbyist soldering iron that can go all the way up to a professional level. And just to show that that's not hyperbole, I currently use an Axon T3B as my main daily driver soldering station, and this also takes JBC tips, and I run JBC tips in it. And I can tell you, switching to JBC tips on these irons have made a fantastic difference, and it makes a really powerful soldering station for not a lot of money. So I'm really excited about Sequre's lineup for this reason. These ones seem to be screwed in, but I had a quick look before I started recording, and if I just undo a couple of screws here, I think this is a T2 screw, but I can just about get onto it with my T3 here. If I just loosen off these grub screws, I can show you. Loosen those off, and now, there we go. And there's our C210 cartridge that's just popped out there. So this is the same as the JBC cartridges. I've got JBC's J-tip here. So you can swap these out for professional grade tips anytime you like. So again, really powerful option there. Or you could swap them out for something like a KU tip. Here's my Axon KU tip. So straight off the bat, I really like that you can effectively buy a tool where you're not locked into a proprietary ecosystem per se. I say proprietary, you know, it is JBC's design, but you're buying something that uses widely accepted tips that everyone knows and likes. Really good design philosophy straight off the bat to be using these and have them replaceable. So my one came with these little micro J tips on, which are really good for getting tiny SMD components, but you could swap those out for bigger tips depending on what you want to use it for. So power delivery comes in by a USB Type-C power delivery. And then we've also got the barrel jack there that can be used with up to 28 volts input on it as well. So that voltage input is important because these mobile devices, you can run them from batteries effectively. So having the high voltage range is really useful if you're running them from a battery. I don't think that's the real target market for this one. Soldering irons, yes, but I don't think anyone is fixing drones with hot tweezers in the field. So this kit that I have here, it also comes with a 65 watt power brick here. We've got a 65 watt power delivery output, and we've got a quick charge 3 type A port. My one is the UK version, so it's come with the UK adapter plug as well. Then we've also got a stand here, which has got a really nice heavy metal base. I like that a lot. And I think we've got the accessory kit for this. So let's just get that set up while I'm talking. And then finally, we've got a nice silicon USB Type-C cable there as well. That's probably 100 watts, that guy. So, oh, that's neat. There's a tiny pair of Allen keys in there for taking the tips out as well. And some spare grub screws in case you lose some. That's a nice touch. I wasn't expecting that. I'm going to leave them in there so I don't instantaneously lose them. There we go. So that would fit in like that. That's nice. That's a really stable stand. Usually soldering iron kits like this will come with just one of those cheap little plastic kickstands, which are, you know, they function, but I wouldn't say you'd want to use one as your main stand. However, that's actually a really nice weighted stand. Obviously, sponge is questionable. Most serious people prefer to use brass wool, but a sponge does work. So at a push, perfectly acceptable to use that, and then stick that in the stand afterwards. I like it. It's cool. So when we turn it on, we start on this menu, which has got a lot of information straight off the bat. We've got the current tip temperature. We've got our set temperature at 300. And we've got the amp and voltage that we have negotiated for power. So it's saying we've got 20 volts and 3 amps available to us. And stop basically means it's not doing anything. So straight from this menu, I can push the up button or the down button, or A or B, whatever, to set the temperature. So that goes in 50-degree increments by default, but we can change that, so I'll show you in a moment. And then if I want to just start using it, we just hold down this button and it says work, and now we're heating. So as you can see, that's just banged up to 350 degrees. These tiny little J-tips, they heat up in basically 0 seconds. So that's why that shot up to temperature so fast. You do get some overshoot with electronic irons like this, but you know, I don't think it's a problem personally. So if we want to go into standby, we just press both the buttons, hold those down, and that's in sleep, and then again, and now that's idling, and that'll just cool down to room temp again. So let's have a look in the menu by holding down the top button here. So in the menu, we've got the iron. So if we press, so I can go back and forth through the menu here. I think we hold down the top button. There we go. So work temp, temp step. So I'm going to change this to 20 because I like 20-degree increments personally. Because I regularly move between sort of, you know, 360, 380, and 400. Hold that. Nope. Both. Yeah, there we go. Hold them both down to set it. And temp. So then we've got temperature compensation for the left and right things. Timeout. I'm trying to go through this quickly so the menu doesn't time out. Right. So we've got compensation for both iron tips. Temperature unit. Temp shield. Not sure what that is myself. We've got a little buzzer because it beeps at you. Start heat, so you can have it so it just heats up straight away when you turn it on. And we've got turbo mode as well. So you turbo mode is boost mode. So on boost mode, you hold down the button and it will boost up to a boost temperature. So let's say you're soldering at 360 degrees and you hit a ground plane and you need a bit of help. You hold down turbo mode and it will boost up to, say, 400 degrees to get you through that ground plane. Oh, I wonder if that means... This probably means you can decide which ones will heat. So you could set it so only one of them heats up, either the left or the right, and use it as a single iron or something. Restore settings. Cool. All right. So I'll just wait for a sec so that times back out to the main menu. Idle, in there we'll find the idle temperatures that it goes to. So how long until it goes to sleep, how long until it switches off automatically, stuff like that. And then, hold on. Then in the OLED menu, we can set the brightness, we can set direction, so we can flip it around. We can set how the keys work. I'm just going to leave those at the default. Language. Cool, that's fine. And then we can also set voltage settings. So this is important if you're running it on batteries. You can say what maximum voltage and current it will do. Hey, can I boost the current? Because I've got a bigger power supply than this. Max current 5 amp. The steps are pretty big. It would have been nice to set a 3.5 amp current. But yeah, the next one up is 5 amps. And that's a 100 watt power supply. I do actually have one of those. But actually, you know what? Let's put it to the test. I'm powering this from an Apple 120 watt power supply at the moment. So, you know, let's see if it'll do it. So low voltage, if you're running it on a battery, you can tell it to cut off if your battery is on low voltage so it doesn't lunch the battery. And then, what was the other thing down the bottom there? Comp volt. Not sure what this is referring to without reading the instructions. You can look through them at your leisure. Then finally, we've got calibration settings and about. So I've set that to 5 amps now, so let's just see if it'll do that. So I've just brought up my Paul Daniels Type-C power meter, and it's flickering a bit because this guy seems to hang around at very, very low idle currents, and it's confusing the meter slightly. However, if I start heating, hopefully it will stabilize, or at the very least, we'll see the kind of current draw that this thing has. So let's start heating. Oh, there we go. That banged right up to, yeah, we got 4.5 amps out of it then. So yeah, maybe that was as high as my power supply wanted to go, but yeah, it pulled 4 amps to heat up. That was pretty savage. Cool, let's cool down again. All right, so you get the idea. That's the iron. Let's start doing some practicing with it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut to some footage of a repair that I was doing very recently where I busted this guy out to get a dead capacitor off of the board, and I just turned it on and used it blind. So roll the clip. This is the first time I've ever used hot tweezers, so good luck everyone. I am just going to wet the joint slightly on that busted side. This guy might be welded down, so the lower side is ready to go. The top side though, that's welded. Come on, little dude. There we go. Beautiful. Op success. Damn it. I can never get them flat. Time to bust out those tweezers again. Okay, I don't know how flat it is, but at least it's straight. Takes practice when you get a new tool just to get the hang of how it behaves. There we go. Okay. Okay. Might need some more solder on the top pad, but let's just get it on first. Oh, it helps if I turn the iron on. These tiny J-tips come up to temperature real quick. There we go. I think that's one and done. Not bad. I'm into it. So that worked out pretty well. Next, what I did was, because it was a Saturday, on my Saturday afternoon podcast, I was soloing, and I decided to just do some more practicing with it on a couple of scrapboards and just see what the limits were, what it can do and what it can't do. And I invited my audience to make some suggestions, because I had a couple of people who I knew that said, I'm very interested in these. Can you test it on this, that, and the other? So let's just cut to that experimentation. I am going to wet the joins slightly with some fresh solder, but just because that helps in any case. That feels like a ground plane. I think we've got some solder on there though. Let's go for it. Bam. And let's just quickly save that before we lose it. And yes, I did just snatch it off the tips with my fingers. Do not question me. I took out one of the cartridges from these earlier on, and I think I put it in at a slight angle. So as you can see, the tips don't quite meet evenly. So I'll need to adjust that at some point. That was me messing with the cartridge earlier on when I was recording review footage. Still practicing with these things. We're still at... Oh, there we go. That's still at 360 as well. Come on, get off, get off. Oh no. Damn it. Oh no. Hold on. I can save it. I can save it. It's a little toasty. It's still good. It's still good. Okay. Oh, look at that. Did you see that little wobble I did to straighten it? I'm a genius. Don't think we need the extra solder right now. Can we flip that over? It doesn't matter which way up it goes, but the right way up would be nice. I gotta say, these hot tweezers are a dream. I'm really enjoying them. Go on, get down there, you. Whoop. Cool. Come on, I want it to flip over. There we go. Ooh, come on. Whoop. Bam. Done. And there we go, folks. So that is the Sequre HT140 hot tweezers. So I'm not going to pretend that these things will go toe-to-toe with a industrial professional hot tweezer station from the likes of, JVC, Weller, Hacko, etc., etc. But the thing is that these are incredibly accessible. And if you're working on the kind of scale that I am, this suddenly makes hot tweezers a far more attractive prospect than I previously thought. The fact that you can use really nice tips on them is incredibly attractive to me. And they're convenient enough that I don't have to have another box on my workbench. Because they're Type-C powered, I can just plug them in when I need them and just put them to one side when I don't need them. There's also some really nice accessories available for this. The kit that you've seen me showcasing is available from the Sequre website for $104 at the time of recording. And that's pretty decent, I think. Allowing for what this is, that is the carry case, the hot tweezers, the stand, and a 65-watt power brick. You can get it without the power brick, but it's, $94. So for another tenner, you get power brick with it. I think that's kind of a no-brainer, personally. And the other thing that I thought was interesting as well is that they do sell additional tips for these as well. So you can get a pair of tips for $25, which is pretty decent. Those aren't going to be as good as the JVC ones, but again, they're affordable, which is important. And they've got some interesting designs, like the 6mm, I don't know what you call this, the 6mm KS tip is what it's called. And that, as you can see, is long enough that it can pick up sort of SOT23 chips and maybe even a BIOS chip with the hot tweezers instead of having to use hot air on it. And again, really practical application. I'm seriously considering looking into this myself to see if I can use that for removing BIOS chips from motherboards without using hot air. So great product all around. I'm really happy to have one of these on my workbench now. A big thank you to Sequre for sending this sample in. And if you're interested in learning more or buying one of these for yourself, there'll be affiliate links in the description down below. Thanks as always to all of my viewers, patrons, Twitch subscribers, channel members, and more. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.